Hello and welcome to the 107th episode of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill, and I'll start us off with a couple things here. Real interesting. The guy that put the $250 million into the Alliance of America Football.
Yes.
He describes it. He didn't describe it as he was investing in the league. He described it as he bought the league.
Okay.
Which I thought was really interesting. And he said $250 million is the amount he's willing to put in. So he didn't give somebody $250 million. So he's willing to put in up to $250 million. And he thinks $250 million, if they decide the league is a viable thing, could keep the league afloat for several years. But if it's not a viable business, then he'll shut it down like he would shut down any business. So I thought it was interesting. And then I looked at attendance this weekend. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
I saw one was below 10 and another one was just over 10. So I'm a little pessimistic. I do like the San Antonio team. I do like the Birmingham team. And I really like the Orlando team. I think those three teams are interesting to watch.
I mean, they have the obvious problem, and it's the problem the NFL has too, is there just aren't enough good quarterbacks.
No, there's no real talent there.
And the fact that, one of the biggest stars of that league right now is Trent Richardson.
Yeah.
With multiple time bust in the NFL.
Yeah, he was tearing it up again this past week, and they can't tackle him.
So for a guy that couldn't get it done in multiple situations in the NFL, he's a top 3 pick, and then he was traded for a first round pick like 2 years later and was out of the league. Like, if that guy can dominate your league, it doesn't say much about your league, I guess.
I'll tell you what, I've seen some of the wide receivers.
Yeah.
And I do like them. And since they don't really have quality quarterbacks throwing to them, and they still look pretty good,
yes,
I think a couple of those will get picked up.
I think so.
Let's see. The PGA Tour is now looking for a gambling sponsor. Only casinos and gambling resorts, no sports book. So yeah. I think everybody's going to jump on this bandwagon now. It's a lucrative sponsorship source. We've kind of given gambling a pass, wouldn't you say?
I feel like it's been one of those things that like has never really been frowned upon by anybody but like stereotypical like 1950s like church lady. Like, I mean, it happens constantly, March Madness pools at the office, fantasy football, like gambling's been part of everybody's life that will follow sports for, pretty much their entire lives at this point. So it's hard to be like, oh, gambling is terrible.
So we'll see where it goes.
What do you think your hesitation is about involving sports books?
I don't know. I think if you're in on casinos, they all have sports books. So why not just a sports book by itself?
Yeah, that's what I was like. Because I'm like, you're already in, so what's be splitting hairs for at this point?
I don't see enough of a differentiation. I really don't. So I don't know. I mean, I thought there'd be more differentiation, but there really isn't. So
true.
We'll see it. So we had our signings. We had our Bryce Harper signing. We had our Manny Machado signing. And now people are saying there's going to be a baseball strike after the 21 season.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I think it would be death. I think it'd be the stupidest thing that could be done. Because it's not like baseball is growing. It's existing. And MLS is going to continue to gain on it. And I just don't see it.
No, and then you got, the niche things like esports probably eventually figuring out a way to make it a little bit more accessible to the mainstream.
Yeah.
Did you hear the Bryce Harper thing, though?
Yeah, the Bryce Harper thing. I mean, 13 years, $330 million, no deferred money.
And a no trade clause.
And no opt-out clause.
Yeah.
So he's there till he's 39 years old. So that's a lot of money. They must be convinced that last year was an anomaly.
And the year before to some extent.
But, I have to say, Jace, the Albert Pujols contract, and I'm not saying he's still a viable player, but he's not a $20 million a year player.
No.
And I would be a little gun shy about I don't know. It seemed like it was a real war there toward the end because the Giants were offering. I think they wanted 12 years at 310 or 320 million dollars. They were going to offer him. So at the end, it wasn't people offering him 5-year deals. It was people offering him the 10 years, even more than 10 years that he wanted. So I don't know.
Yeah. SNL had the joke. They said $330 million is how much it would cost if somebody needs to move to Philadelphia. If you want to know how much it would cost somebody. And as a Pittsburgh person, that's kind of a funny joke.
Oh, I'm sorry I missed Saturday Night Live because I heard, or actually, I'm sorry I missed John Oliver last night. I taped it, but I heard John Oliver, and we can talk about this later on. I heard John Oliver was just hilarious about the security clearance for Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump.
And, as I said, I just watched the clips on YouTube for Saturday Night Live, but I'll just throw this out there. Early entertainment moment. John Mulaney was the host. So he's an actual comedy writer and a comedian. So it had a lot of really funny sketches and very little political ones, which was nice.
All right. So get back to our business moment. We'll get back to our entertainment. But so the baseball strike after the 21 season is a speculation, but there's also speculation that football expires in their collective bargaining expires in 2020, but they're saying there's a lot of signs that point to being renewed in that they'll reach an agreement this year in 19.
Well, as you said, you can't afford to go away, or especially with the economy. I mean, who knows if it'll ever be what it's supposed to be, but I don't think you can afford to be fighting publicly and holding out and not, you need to be on the field, I think.
Yeah.
I think you can lose a lot of business if you're fighting over money when people are all struggling,
Yeah, agreed. And I think people can't relate to millionaires fighting with millionaires.
No, they cannot.
All right, here's one for you. A number of the NFL Combine events next year might go to prime time. What do you think about that? I watched and I'd heard this, so I watched some of the Combine the other day. Like I watched the quarterbacks.
Yes.
Which I think would be the one they would move to prime time, right?
Right.
I was bored to tears.
As you know, I follow the draft probably more.
I know. That's why I'm throwing this out for you.
But honestly, the only thing I'd want to see televised would be the thing they would never televise, and that's the interviews.
Yeah, that's true. They won't televise those.
I mean, that's the part I want to see. You know, I mean, when they show me, I don't mind a highlight of the kid from Auburn that ran the 4.240.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind watching a clip of that, but I don't want to watch random people just run 40-yard dashes over and over again. The only time I'm sort of interested in the drills is after Pittsburgh has drafted somebody, and then I want to go back and be like, oh, okay, well, I like those numbers. But yeah, most of the events are not fantastic by any stretch. But the one that most headlines is, can you believe they asked me this? Yeah, I would love to see that live.
Well, I watched the quarterback thing, and you know what? At the end of it, first of all, I was kind of down on Kyler Murray for not throwing.
Yeah.
And then after watching it, if you're a quarterback, why do you want to throw to a bunch of guys you've never thrown to before?
You wouldn't.
I know. That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, unless you got your own guys there, you're throwing to guys that they're trying to make it go, but you've not really seen their speed. You haven't really worked on their patterns with them. You don't know, so you can look bad because you're not on sync.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Of the ESPN, Kuiper and McShay. And they said that it's pretty 50-50 of guys that have thrown and guys that haven't and gone in the first round.
Yeah.
And they did bring up the fact that, even though Kyler Murray came in at 5'10", with the proper hand size and the 200-something pounds, that there's nothing to be gained by him standing around with a bunch of other quarterbacks because he's going to look like a little person.
No, there's nothing to be gained at all. And he can only go down. Now,
right.
Because they've just said, okay, he's legitimate now, and now he does something that's not legitimate. Why would you do that?
Right. And again, you go to your pro day, you do the same thing, but it's receivers it's patterns you've rehearsed, it's all those sorts of things. So
it's in your building where you've thrown a million times before.
Yeah. Your coaches, your players, it makes more sense.
Well, I'm going to have a special shout out to whoever
makes more sense.
Stretched out Kyler Murray, whoever put him in the inversion bed, whoever did whatever they could do to get him over 5'10", because they did their job. They should get a bonus. Monday Night Football. So Jason Witten is leaving the booth, going back to play for the Cowboys. Do you like that decision or not like that decision?
Well, he's absolutely terrible on Monday Night Football. So sure,
You think he can still play? You get year off Harden?
I. It's hard to imagine. I mean, I think he was one of those guys that wasn't. He's just a reliable. Third and six. I think he can go back and contribute in that standpoint.
I think he can
I
too.
mean, he's another one of those guys that he was a good looking former player that people knew about, but I never understood the bidding war for him because he's terrible on TV.
Well,
And
so what do you think about the speculation as to his replacement?
Peyton Manning,
That's one.
that's the only one I've heard of.
Louis Riddick,
Oh,
who really wants the job,
okay.
and Steve Levy / Brian Greasy.
Of people I've seen in the last few years on TV, I think Nate Burleson, former Viking receiver who's on the NFL Network, I think he'd be fantastic.
I agree. He would be my choice. He's knowledgeable. He's personable. He's good looking guy.
Yeah.
He's got charisma. He's intelligent. He understands the game. He's articulate, and he's funny. I think he'd be great.
And as we can attest, and anyone that's listened to our show from the beginning, hopefully we've gotten better as we've gotten more reps in. And that's a guy that's been on the NFL Network, I think, for 3 years now, give or take. So he's gotten the reps in. He's been behind. He's been on camera. He's had some ups and downs. He gets it. I think he'd be fantastic. I know he's not like the sexy name, obviously, if you're like a rich executive,
But he's been on TV, and he's on he's on the network. He's on ESPN. He's a known commodity. People probably have already formed an opinion of him. I don't know. I think Jace. I think you should get credit for the scoop. I think that's the best call.
And obviously, the other guy I love, who maybe is a little bit further away from, is one of our former favorite players, Ryan Clark, who I think has been awesome on TV.
I'd like Ryan Clark too. I don't know if he could carry that show though. I think Nate Burleson could.
Okay. Yeah, I think Ryan Clark, he's growing though. He's another guy that I watch, and he's good. He's really good.
He is. So the last thing I want to talk about is the Phillies. Now that they signed Bryce Harper.
Yes.
So they had 9,500 season ticket holders last year. So this week they're up to 11,800, and they're hoping to get to 14,000 for the year. All those things I think are doable. They think eventually they can get to 28,000 season ticket holders. I don't think there's a snowball chance in hell of getting to 28,000 season ticket holders. I think you can get to 28,000 season ticket equivalencies, which would be, anything that adds up to 81 games.
Right.
But I don't think you're going to find 28,000 people buying 81 games. As good of a sports market as Philadelphia is, and I really believe it's a great sports market, I don't see 28,000 season ticket holders for baseball.
Well, I mean, StubHub and all those ticket sites have pretty much made that obsolete on some level.
I agree. People are going to buy it. I think their attendance will go up. Now, the one thing they did 2.15 million last year. Can they get to 3 million this year? That's a 40% increase in their attendance. I know it's a big increase, but if that team gets out of the blocks and plays well together, I mean, they get a lot of credibility. They spent the money on Harper. They spent the money on McCutchen. They made the trade for Real Muto. They signed that pitcher to an extension. I mean, they've really made some significant moves.
Yes, they have.
And in a market like that, that's a lot of credibility. So I think this could really work out. I think they could get to 3 million or within an eyelash of 3.3 million this year.
Like you said, if they come out hot, or if they, hit the All-Star game and come out as like that team that's just on fire afterwards, and I think that's definitely doable.
Yeah, I do. So those are my combination of my sport business moments.
Very nice. Well, why don't we have a small one? Let's have our Steeler minute, or Steeler couple of moments.
Okay.
You're the Steelers. You're Kevin Colbert. You come out and you call 51 members of your team children.
Kids, yep.
Kids. Some of them whom are fathers and have kids, and tell them to listen to Ben Roethlisberger.
Bad move.
It just seems like a really bad move. Now, Antonio Brown has probably made you look better with his And he's also hurt you with the trade value, with all of his social media and his off the court problems and everything else. But this doesn't make you look like a very well run organization when you say things like that and throw your money behind a guy that, you know,
No, I don't think he looked very well at all. I don't think he looked really well at all. I think that he looked. It's just a bad word choice. You don't call
yes.
women girls. You don't call men kids. So I think it's a bad word choice. As for Antonio Brown, a lot of, because he is a lightning rod, and he'll say whatever he's going to say. He's good copy, and he's good rating. So everybody's going to want to hear Antonio Brown. So everybody's giving him a chance to tell his side of the story.
Yeah, and you're just adding fuel to that fire.
But his side makes no sense. And he says it's all about respect. They don't respect me, and yet look what he did.
Yeah,
he didn't. So it's just really, he's not coming across as a well-wrapped person. Let's put it that way.
no,
He's coming across as somebody that's a little bizarre, eccentric. I mean, he's rapidly approaching the Terrell Owens mark.
and it seems like he is also, unfortunately for us Steeler fans, hurting his trade value quite a bit.
Yeah. Did you see his workout video? That reminded me so much of Terrell. Remember when Terrell Owens was doing the push-ups and the sit-ups in his driveway? And so Antonio Brown did one of those. I mean, he's got all this workout video that he's showing his abs and showing his physique and everything else and how hard he works. But he's already damaged all the other stuff. So I don't know.
I know, and especially like I know there's not, we don't know for certain, but it looks like you've got the DJ Metcalf, who looks like a defensive end that runs a 4.3 40 as a wide receiver, and you've got it looks like 10 guys that could go in the first 2 rounds.
Yep.
And including Hollywood Brown, who was Antonio Brown's real life cousin, who plays from Oklahoma.
If they draft him, I'm going to lose my mind.
But with Antonio Brown with all these antics, I think now more and more GM's going to be like, unless you're a team, unless you're like the Saints or the Packers or somebody right on the cusp of, if you're one great player away from making your quarterback's job that much easier, I think you'd rather take a chance with a young guy on a cheap contract than you would Antonio Brown at this point.
But I'd go the other way too. I'd say if you got a quarterback that's been struggling because he doesn't have enough weapons, but you have a pretty good defense and you got a pretty good other part of your team, then maybe you do, because maybe this is what gets you over the top.
It's true.
I think wherever he goes, he's going to be on his best behavior for a year.
Yeah, as long as he gets some kind of money up front.
He's going to be kicking Gatorade containers because he's still not going to get the ball as much as he wants. Did you see Larry Fitzsimmons' quote this week?
Oh, Fitzgerald?
Larry Fitzgerald. And he was calling out Antonio Brown, saying, "You know what? You've been playing with a Hall of Fame quarterback." He goes, "I haven't, and you should be thankful for what you have."
It's very, very true.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some part of the Steelers organization that wants to send him somewhere with a bad quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Fitzgerald's best years, I think, were with Kurt Warner, right?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And he's he's a Hall of Fame receiver, even with all the bad. But I mean, it's tough. Yeah.
But he's had how many quarterbacks? And just he's had like 5 or 6 quarterbacks.
At least. Yeah. I think he's had multiple quarterbacks, like 3 quarterbacks in the same year at different points at Arizona.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we should move to the big thing happening right now, and that's the NBA as we get closer and closer to playoff time. MVP talk.
Yeah. I think I'm still in the Paul George camp.
Really?
I've really, really enjoyed watching Paul George. And I say to myself, if you took Paul George off that team, where would they be? And they might not be in the top 8, right?
You could make. I think that's the way he's played this year. I think yes.
Okay, so that to me makes him, and the fact that they're 4th and probably could finish 3rd, that to me makes him my most valuable player, because he's made that much of a difference, and he's made everybody on that team better because he's been his way he's played. And I can't say that about James Harden. I think James Harden would be my offensive player of the year, yes, but I don't think he's my MVP.
No, and you saw Harden missed a game, and now that Capella and Chris Paul are back, they wouldn't beat the Warriors in Golden State.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, For me, it's going to come down to either Giannis or Paul George. I could be happy with either of those two guys.
I think if Giannis and they continue on this pace and they end up winning, 60 something games and the number one seed in the East, I think it's Giannis's turn.
Yeah, either one of those two guys, I'm content with. They both they both played amazing.
Speaking of the Bucks and the number one team in the East, did you see who they signed as a pickup?
No,
they signed Paul Gasol.
That's not a bad pickup.
No,
he doesn't seem like a bad pickup at all. That's somebody that's been around, that's experienced. Yeah, and I like what Portland did this week too. I like the pickups Portland made.
Yeah,
I just, you know what, Jason? I don't understand Portland and Denver. I mean, I realize, they're two of the best teams in the West, right?
Technically, yes.
But historically, they've been hideous in May. The first round, one and done.
Oh, incredibly so. Now, with Denver, I think you can at least say that.
I watched Portland highlights last night, and I was impressed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think one of the differences between those two teams is Denver has a lot of, obviously Jokic, but then you got, Jamal Murray and a lot of these, Gary Harris, a lot of these really young guys. And it seems like they're on the come up, whereas Portland has sort of been the perpetual, somewhere between the 8th seed and the 3rd seed, depending on the season, but just unable to get it done in the playoffs with the Lillard-McCollum combo.
But I watched Denver play, too. I'm really impressed with what Denver has.
Yeah.
I like both of those teams. The West is still – do I think Golden State will win it? A month ago, I was positive. Now I'm not positive.
I think as long as they're, their key four, not even including Bogey, are healthy, I think they pull it together. I think they can go to another level in the playoffs. I think they kind of coast from time to time during the race because I think they know where they need to be, Well,
they do. There's no question they put it on autopilot for a while.
Like, obviously, as you know, and anybody that listens to this podcast knows, we would love to see Oklahoma City win it all.
Yes.
But I just have a hard time.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Can't.
This is the best Oklahoma City team that I've seen in a while.
Since Durant was there, for sure.
Yes. I think this team has – this is the first team I've seen in Oklahoma City. Can I put it that way? This is actually a team. And
I have, bizarrely, seen some of the anti-Russ people are finally coming around to what Russ actually does. This is a concept. I forget who came up with it, but they said he's the ultimate 90-10 guy, where 90% of what he does is incredible and you love it, and the 10% is the stuff that just drives you nuts.
Yeah, he is.
But they say 10% is even higher than everybody else's 10%. Yeah. Some of his decision-making and shooting, but he plays so hard. And you watch the rest of that team, including Paul George, and they play to his tempo. They play with his anger, his desires. I think that's one of the
they're down 30 points. Without Paul George, he brings them back.
Yeah.
And then the stat is he's made more – when his team's behind, he's made more baskets to turn the game around than anybody else. It's like 15, and the next guy's like 5 or 6. But,
he can just play with a lot of emotion. Yeah. He can get 3% back in the 80s, where it was his entire career up till this year. I think they've got a real shot.
But I agree with you. When he makes a bad decision, boy, he makes a bad decision.
Yes, he does.
So you want to talk LeBron and that dumpster fire in L.A.?
It is. That's exactly what it is. It's an absolute dumpster fire.
But he created it.
Yeah.
It's his dumpster fire.
Oh, yeah. He's got the can and the matches for sure.
And Luke Walton's clothes are starting to smoke.
Yeah, but you feel like he kind of – if you listen to, and again, rumors or whatever, it seemed like he didn't like – he wanted Luke Walton out before he even met Luke Walton. Or at least,
I know.
But in a coaching capacity.
But now he can say that he gave him a chance, but he's got to go. Rather than just getting rid of him when he first came in like he's done before. So now he can say he's got to go. But it's a dumpster fire. It is a mess. If I'm a free agent, I don't know if I want to go. I don't know if I want to go play with LeBron. I don't know if I want to go there.
Well, you figure this summer, obviously a lot depends on what Kyrie Irving does. But there's multiple teams that can, obviously Boston being head of the class, but can offer better packages for Anthony Davis than the Lakers can.
Oh, a lot of teams can offer more than the Lakers can.
Right. Kyrie Irving and Kawhi Leonard and some of these other pending free agents have already said they don't want to be Lakers. They don't want to play with LeBron.
Yep.
Kevin Durant's made that very clear.
Very clear.
Your young guys, you've sort of alienated all of them already, the future of your team. You had them sign all these weird free agents that just took away their minutes and didn't really, Michael Beasley and JaVale McGee,
Yeah.
And plus he has a lot of miles on the odometer. And this is the first year that he's begun to look like a human being and not, LeBron James, I would say. Yeah. Like, we've seen injuries keep him out, and we've seen him look slow. And as people have pointed out, like, not that he was ever, like, defensive player of the year unless he decided he wanted to be for that game. But he's been late on a lot of, he's not playing great basketball anymore.
So I think this might be your year as a Knicks fan. This could be your year.
You think?
There's enough money.
Yes.
And there's enough guys that if you put them together and they want to go to New York and play for Spike Lee and be in the limelight, if they want to do it, this is the year.
And again, if they get some combination of Kyrie and Durant with having to give up none of their assets that they have now, and then they get one of those top picks in the draft,
Kyrie and Anthony Davis, or Anthony Davis and Durant, I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna. They're my off season that I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch the Knicks.
And again, the NBA would love to have the Knicks be good again.
Hey, did you see the Skechers ad poking fun at Nike?
I did not see the Skechers ad poking fun at Nike.
Oh, Jason, you know what it says? Skechers, we won't split on you. It's pretty harsh.
Yeah,
it's funny. I smiled when I saw it.
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, it's a quick, nice ad to throw out there. It's great.
And since they're not Adidas and they're not Puma and they're not New Balance, they're kind of like the other guy, they're like the fat kid in gym class.
Exactly.
You're gonna laugh. Whatever he says, it's gonna be funny. So that's what it is. It's funny.
Definitely. Well,
so let's talk about. You said you saw the best movie of the year.
I saw.
I asked you if it was Green Book, and you laughed at me. So tell me about the best movie of the year, or tell our listeners.
The Spider-Verse, which of course is an animated film. I know very little about.
So what is the Spider-Verse? Educate me.
Okay, so basically, in the Spider-Verse, there's obviously the story of Peter Parker.
Right.
And then eventually there's a young, half Hispanic, half African-American kid named Miles Morales that is also bit by a spider, and he sort of becomes a new Spider-Man. So in this world, presumably we're in our universe. But then Kingpin sets loose, he's trying to bring back his family, and he knows there's multiple universes. And in attempting to bring back his family, he opens up this rift in time, and all these other Spider people, I should say, because there's Spider Women, Spider-Man, and Spider Pig. That's right, Peter Porker.
Nice.
They all come into this universe, and they have to get back or they'll disappear. But you get Gwen, who's obviously in our universe is one thing, but in there she's the Spider Woman of her universe. And there's another one from like Nouveau New York. Nicolas Cage actually plays Spider Noir, which is a black and white Spider-Man with like a trench coat and a hat. And they'll have to come together to, save they have to get back to their own timelines, but in the process, obviously save our timeline. But it's a really good story. It's got excellent voice acting. It's less cliche than a lot of things. And then visually, it was absolutely stunning.
You told me it was like a real comic book brought to life.
Very much so. It had moments, and this is pseudo bad comparison, but if you've ever seen the original cut of the Warriors, where they cut back to some comic panels from time to time, and then a little bit of the old school 1960s Batman, where you get a couple of things across the screen, pow, zam, some of that. It's got a little bit of that to it. But visually, like, it's just a stunning movie to look at. Like, the animators did an amazing job. and it just brings me with music and personality. And I don't know, it's funny, it's heartfelt, it's really well written. Said it might be the best superhero movie I've ever seen.
Yeah. Okay. So a good movie.
Yeah,
I,
and
I
it's the
watched.
highest film of the year on Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes, and obviously it won Best Animated Feature. So it's got a lot of analytics and stats to back it up as well.
All right. I watched the first night of Leaving Neverland last night,
Oh,
and I'll tell you, it's very disturbing. So if you don't want to be upset or disturbed, don't watch it. And part two's on tonight, and then after part two, Oprah is interviewing the two young men portrayed in the movie, along with the director of the movie afterwards. So it should be interesting. The Oprah thing sounds interesting to me. I want to see because she doesn't throw powder puff questions. So she'll
no.
ask if you got any money. She'll ask hard questions. Um, they showed Michael Jackson with Macaulay Culkin in some film sequences, and another guy, and supposedly Macaulay Culkin and this other young man said that there was never anything sexual. But if you really watch this thing, you see this pattern, and there's a lot. I tell you, there's a lot of evidence. There's all kind of texts and faxes and just crazy behavior. I mean, he was obviously a troubled human being,
Yes,
obviously, and he was a genius, but a troubled human being.
very much
And
so.
it's just hard. It's hard to watch, but it's like a train wreck. You got to watch it. It just draws you in. So I was drawn in for 2 hours last night. Now I don't know if I'll watch it tonight. I'm definitely taping it, and I don't know. I'll watch the Oprah part for sure, but I don't know if I'll watch the second part or not. It's just too troubling.
I think I think almost everybody that's ever heard, he's got sort of that Beatles quality where there's just some amazing Michael Jackson music that it's universally liked and hard not to.
Hmm.
And bizarrely, I think South Park's portrayal of Michael Jackson was sort of like everybody's best hope to that this was what Michael Jackson was like. As bizarre as that sounds, because it is South Park and it's Matt and
Yeah,
Trey and all that sort of stuff. But they
yeah,
basically portrayed him as like somebody stuck in like a perpetual, state of arrested development where he couldn't grow up because he had such a rough childhood, and that it was all like mostly innocent, just him trying to be a child as an adult, which would have been the best hope. But it sounds like it's a lot more disturbing. So it's very sad to see.
we'll have to see. We'll see where it goes.
I know we were
Uh,
talking a little bit offline, but like, when like old reruns of the Cosby Show would occasionally just pop up. I mean, not so much now because I don't have cable, but I know like before, if it was, the one where Theo has to pay rent or something like that, I would watch those episodes.
mhm.
And in the wake of everything Cosby, like I can't separate the man from his art. And I don't know how this will affect Michael, the art of Michael Jackson. Like I think
I
it's a
don't think
lot
it's going to
easier.
affect it. I mean, just like I don't know where people have taken off, if people stopped watching Cosby reruns or what, but I don't know.
Like I think it's easy to stop listening to R. Kelly.
Yeah,
I mean, R. Kelly's a much easier person to find replacements for, people that are similar to R. Kelly. You can skip R. Kelly, but Michael Jackson's a much harder person just to be like, no, I'm not going to listen to his music anymore. So yeah,
yeah. All right. Well, it's been a fun show. I don't have any good food moments this week, Jace. I'm going to Cleveland. I don't know if I'm going to have a good food moment in Cleveland the next 2 days or not.
you might. It's possible.
It's possible. I did eat at Stefano's in Orlando again and enjoyed that. So,
And I've ever mentioned it here, but I ate at Desi Vegas Burgers,
oh
and
no,
it was
you haven't. What's that one?
well, Desi Vegas is one of the bigger New Orleans steak restaurants,
Okay,
and he opened up a satellite one, which is just Desi Vegas Burgers, and they make a great burger. Just an excellent, like big, thick, juicy hamburger.
nice.
Pretty reasonably priced, I would say. Their fries are a little more on the thicker cut side, so I'm not as a big of a fan. But just
But are they steak fries then? Right,
they're steak fries.
frozen or fresh?
I believe fresh.
No, I like those.
Yeah, But the burger itself is an excellent burger. And I mean, I would say burger fry combo is anywhere, depending on what you get on it, between like $13 and $20. So, but it is, you can tell it's like, when it's a big fresh ground beef patty and it kind of falls apart a little bit from time to time with the beef pieces,
Yep.
it's got that going for it. Toasted bun, a lot of toppings, real bacon, really good burger.
I'm into it. It sounds good. I'll try that next time we come.
And I've never been to their steakhouse, which I assume is, pretty good as well.
Oh, so it's not the burger at the steakhouse. It's a separate place.
Yeah, they open up, like I said, it's a separate restaurant that's just their burgers.
Okay. Yeah, Shula's has done that too. Shula's has a steakhouse, but then they also have now a couple places where they just sell the burgers. And the burgers are always really good at Shula's. So
Yeah.
it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you really don't want to go to a steak. If you go to a steak place, you're probably going to order a steak.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you go for lunch.
Or you're a frequenter of their happy hour or something along those lines where you find yourself there frequently. But, it's nice though. So, yeah. So again, please rate us on iTunes. Help us out on Patreon. Hopefully the sound has been better and all those things. We've made some improvements for you. And again, if you're one of our regular Patreon members or just a listener and you want to, ask questions or come on the show, let us know.
Great. And we look forward to talking to you all again next week.